it's not often you go on a journey. Like, so months ago, Gourry said something to me, and it stuck in my mind. And it sent me on a journey looking for a piece of truth. And it was such a delicate truth, because almost if you said it above a whisper, it'd vanish. And it led me to the bowels of the internet, looking for it. And anywhere I looked, it was torn down, almost as if the internet itself rejected it. Went to archive the net, or archive the web, Wayback Machine, and I found it. And then we searched for a better quality. As I found this truth, it yielded more questions, which we're going to answer on this stream. But first, I need to show you the truth that I found, and it is magical.
Hey, Tom.
That would be a nudist colony getting invaded.
Whoa, guys, no clothes on the compound. I'll tell you what we're gonna do. We're gonna fight.
Wait, hold on. And this is where I had a question. Let's go back a little bit. And then let's slow this down, and let's enhance. Let's bring up an image for comparison. Gourry, can you care to explain your actions right now?
All right, so to let everyone in on the joke, this is a Funny or Die exclusive that was filmed in 2009, and it was on Oahu, and it was called Naked Dawn, which is kind of a play on words from the movie Red Dawn. And the movie Red Dawn is about Russia invading the U.S. It's like a cheesy 80s, maybe early 90s movie, something like that. I've never seen it. But the premise of this was essentially, what if Russia invaded a nudist colony, and what if Rob Schneider was there? And there was a casting call for extras on the island. I was there, and I showed up, and they put me in a uniform and made me into a Russian soldier that was invading a nudist colony. And it was a fun time.
Look, and the thing which is amazing about this to me too is, as like, one, this has been like weirdly scrubbed. It's not on IMDb. It's not on Funny or Die. In truth be told, it was like Gourry, both of us searching for it, and he was the one who found it. But it was at like 300p, like horrible quality.
It was 240p, right? So like I went to the Wayback
horrible.
Machine. I was like, it's definitely on the Wayback Machine. And this is where it's like a little mind-boggling, right? If you go to the Wayback Machine, you go to the earliest postings of it, it's a flash video. And like I had to go through individual like years of archived videos of this, and eventually they put because in 2009 not everyone had good access to internet, so they put up the lowest quality version they could get. And I think a few years back I went looking for it, and I found the 240p version that they put up in maybe like 2011 or 2012 or something like that. Awful, terrible quality. And I slowly had to go through the Wayback Machine's history until it got to the point where there was like a watch in HD button, and I clicked that and it didn't come up. But I clicked like, was it like browse element or whatever, and I was looking through the page source, and I found all of the extensions that were like, this one's in 600 and this one's in 240. And by golly, if you you wouldn't have guessed it, but the 240p version or whatever was up there. And so if you want to watch the whole thing, I have a link to the whole thing that I've put up on a burner account for you guys to watch.
It's very much
funny.
It's very much not safe for work. Throwing it out there, like The version I had shown on stream, I did have to edit it significantly to make it safe. In addition, I had to like swap out music and things like that. The thing which was incredible to me as you were going through this journey, because I got to kind of like witness it firsthand as you were like, oh, I found the 240 version, I found the 720, I found the HD version, is I was kind of laughing because Wayback Machine, like this is like CTF type things and like hacking OS ints, like this is actually legitimately like how you go about doing those things, even in a real life, like where they push to change, you go back to Wayback Machine, you start going back and checking the cache, and none of it actually gets rendered right, and you right click and look at the elements. Like this is, you described exactly what can happen during a test or an assessment or a CTF challenge.
Well, it's also a good privacy lesson too, right? Like something you think, like you go, this is the thing that was bizarre to me, right? Like this was a pretty I'm not going to say it was the most popular Funny or Die thing in 2009, but it was on funnyorDie.com, and it had Rob Schneider in it, right? So like a lot of people saw it, but no one downloaded it and no one re-uploaded it to any service anywhere. If you go looking for this anywhere on the internet right now, except for the Wayback Machine, you can't find it.
With the exception of one thing, which was cracking me up, when you told me you couldn't find it, I went to Google and I'm like, cool, I can Google for it. I'm like, you're making things up. It's the top result. And the top result was your secret link.
Yeah, right? Like that was my re-upload of it.
And it's just like
quick. That's the thing that was bugging me, and it bugged me for years that I could only find the 240p version, and eventually I dug far enough into the Wayback Machine. But it's a good privacy lesson. Like once you put something on the internet, it's there forever.
It is entirely true, and that image of you is going to be there forever now, and I'm happy about this. I feel like I gave back, and I think I need to upload this to text files so it's like forever archived. But for anyone who wants to enjoy the link, it's there for you. But I need to hear more of the story because there's so much I want to ask you. Because first and foremost, like you've done acting, which is crazy. Because I do want to hear the story of like how did you go from like acting in a Funny or Die, being a Russian who is invading a nudist colony, oh goodness, to a software engineer. Like, were you a software engineer at the point you did this and you were doing this for the fun of it? Where was this in, I would say, the course of your career?
So it was while I was still in the Navy. And just to be clear, like not an actor, I was an extra, right? So background actor, if you will. I didn't have any speaking lines. I didn't say anything.
Using your own logic, though, the moment you pick up a guitar, you call yourself a guitarist. Do you do that with acting or no?
I have I would say I'm a hypocrite on that side. Like until you work in a production of any kind, I would say that you're not an actor. I would say you're training to be an actor. Okay. Because you haven't acted in anything other than like once you're in a stage production, yeah, you're an actor. So like I guess I've been in a stage production, so I was an actor at that point, right? So sure, what do you say? But in this particular instance, I was a background actor. I was an extra. Okay. I didn't have any speaking lines. I wasn't doing anything other than right, like I'm lifting the flag, like that type of thing. And actually in that clip, I'm also in that clip a second time. I'm walking onto the beach. I'm actually in the trailer 3 times. I'm one of the 2 people carrying the box on the beach, onto the beach. I'm the person raising I'm the person raising the flag. And then later in the trailer, when they actually start firing at each other, I'm one of the people that dies. And I think I actually might be in it a 4th time. Like I might die twice in the trailer. I mean, it's a funny little comedy clip, right? So anyway, yeah, so I was in the Navy, and you know, I was a security analyst at the time, and in my spare time, I was taking acting lessons, and the casting call went out, and I said, "This looks funny and fun, so I'll go do it." And yeah, that's how I got into it. And I think I was just talking with a buddy of mine that we were talking about trying to do some background acting in the DC Baltimore area because it's something we always wanted to do, but never had the time to do it. Now we definitely have the time to do it. I think it'd be fun just to be like, there I am in the background, right?
No, it's so funny. So like, I care because I know there has to be a couple stories because like you're working, I want to get to the technical aspects, but I'm also just getting really caught up in this whole thing, because in the trailer, it's not like people are not like covered. They are naked. This is why like weird bars were showing up trying to get that ready to be able to show it on YouTube. When you showed up as a background actor, was everyone just like out there? Like, was this what was your first interaction?
Okay, so one, like this background stuff, when you show up to set, they told us to show up to set at a very specific time, because while they're doing all of the nudist scenes, they had a very controlled set, right? They don't want random paparazzi coming in, taking pictures and all of those things. So, you know, it was a professional shoot. And so they had a very controlled set. But I will say, I showed up when they told me to show up, and the first thing I saw was Rob Schneider retrieving a ball from the bushes with his butt just hanging out, right? And like they're not you're not really naked, right? Like people are wearing pasties, people are wearing they have a special device to cover your nether regions, if you will, and it looks you know, flesh toned and stuff like that. So it's not like everyone's naked on set.
Oh, okay.
But you know, their butts are hanging out, which, you know, whatever. It's just a butt. But yeah, so like it's not like you show up and it's like an actual nudist colony, but they did a good job at making it look that way in the editing. And this is actually one of the things I was going to say. We shot, I think, 2 days worth of film, and they trimmed those 2 days worth of film. Like this is like, I want to say they probably had the cameras on for, I'll bet if you asked them, they probably had somewhere between 10 and 20 hours worth of filming, actual video, and they trimmed that down to like 2.5 minutes. Imagine how much more footage we have of like me dying in 50 different ways. Like, and this is something you learn very quickly, that even if you get a part in a movie or in a TV show or any of these things, there's a very high likelihood of you just being cut out, because, you know, they do it for time, they do it, you know, make sure that it's funny, things like that.
So like obviously you weren't all out there. You weren't wearing the pasties or things like that. Had you done acting previously, or you done background like background footage or anything like this? Or was this like one of the first ones? Or had you been on stage? Had you done the stage performance before this?
I mean, stage stuff at that point was all like high school and stuff like that.
Okay.
Other than that, I think this might have been my first, you know, background actor type role. And then after that, I went on to do a few short films with our student group, because I was in a professional acting school at the time. And that was a good time. And that's where, I mean, people have seen the pictures. There's other pictures that we show on stream with me like just wearing a loincloth, because there was another comedy thing I was in called Adventurers that was supposed to take place in South America. And the local guide, his name was Mambuco, and he was described in the script as a tall, skinny white man with glasses. And yeah, there I was.
So
I mean, it was a comedy, but go ahead.
When you did those scenes and whatnot, like I can only imagine. I remember when I first started YouTube, like in streaming, like I felt like remarkably awkward in front of the camera, because like right now I have advantages because I have like you in front of my screen and things like that. Like it is remarkably awkward. Like, you know, you kick on the camera. The first time I clicked on the camera to do recording of myself, there's no interaction. Like I don't get to see the expression of the audience. It's me staring into a lens. Like, did you start going goofy in front of the camera? Was that feeling of like I need to perform, or was it kind of like, did you have to work yourself to that? Does that make sense?
No, I mean, like, so this is something I never really broke from. I actually had a hard time breaking out of that sense of having a filter when the camera turns on. That's why I'm not an actor. Like, contrary to a lot of people's opinions, acting is hard for almost exactly that reason. When the camera goes on, it's like, oh, I have to be acting now. It's like, no, you need to be living truthfully under imaginary circumstances. And that's really hard to do when everything in front of you says you're in a production, right? So
you have a camera on, you have the whole crew, you have the boom mic over it.
Right. But yeah, no, I think there's a lot to be said for, you know, we were talking about how did I end up where I am today? Why am I in computer security? Those things. It's funny because I always like to think that there's a lot of crossover here in communication ability. And, you know, if you're doing pen testing and you're doing physical pen testing, or you're doing social engineering, you and I were talking about this a few days ago. it's just acting in a different form, right? You're still selling some small or big lie to gain access to some information, and except there's no camera in front of you while you're doing it. Probably, if you guys go to the social engineering village at DEF CON, they do the cold calling thing, and so like those people are extraordinary actors, I'll say, in the cold calling CTF, where they try and get information out of people. Some of the conversations you hear on the phone and how absurd they sound, but how believable the social engineer makes it sound. They're fantastic actors. Like, they're doing the exact same thing that an actor would do on set and make it believable.
I think the interesting thing there is, I feel like the times it's most believable is when you have a story behind it. When it's not just outlet telling a lie, but you've built up the idea of the story, which you're then playing out. And I use the example of whether it's like resetting a password or things like that. You're okay. Where am I? What state of mind am I? You're not calm and collected. You're late for, like, I'm late for my meeting. I'm urgently trying to get into my email because my boss is trying to get to me. I need this. And you put yourself into that. Like, what is the story I'm telling? And then you play out the story as opposed to lying. I mean, I guess that's kind of like, it's a small difference, but I feel like that's where I always,
in the acting realm. In the acting realm, we would call this the difference between planning versus preparing, right? So when I prepare for a role, I'm doing all kinds of imagination work. I'm thinking about my backstory and the very, very intricate details of that backstory, and trying to be so familiar with it that if you asked me a question that I could just respond, I could simply respond in character. But then when the camera turns on, you have to let all of it go and just swing with abandon, right? Because anything can happen in the moment. And it's kind of the same thing when you make that phone call and you're in the moment. They could ask you any question. They could ask you, they could try and feel you out as to whether you're genuine. They could do anything, right? And in that moment, if you've planned and you've pre-written your script to only allow you to say certain things, oh, you're so screwed, right?
Yeah.
Because if they break from that script, you're done, right?
I think,
but if you prepare and then you let all of it go and you let yourself just simply be a person, well, now you have the ability to make adjustments on the fly and not be worried about the fact that, like, oh, those aren't the words in the script, but also we're off the rails, so just go with it, right?
The funny one, the last social engineering engagement I did, I had to laugh because I was on with IT, with like the help desk, and the words which made my heart stop was they made a joke. They made a joke which was, this is probably a social engineering experiment. And they said social engineering experiment. And it was like, in my mind, like I skipped a beat. I'm like, how would a normal person react to this? That's so funny. You're so funny. And it was like the most awkward laugh, which I'm glad they didn't pick up on, but it was rolling with it. But oh my gosh, was that like one of the hardest moments I had in social engineering, not to like, no, it's not.
No, so, that's the appropriate response there is, man, you got me. Oh no. Like, I really do need to get into my email. Could you just reset the password, please?
That's about how I rolled with it, was something laughing and then was like, yep, you're right. You got me. It was something along those lines, but my gosh, I didn't remember half the conversation. I was so like focused on it. All right, so I want to pull back here. So you did this whole thing is amazing. This trailer, for anyone who didn't see it, the whole trailer is on a burner account on YouTube, which Gourry is placed if you want to watch it. Again, very not safe for work. So how do you think this is very much out there? How did that, do you think some of these acting skills and whatnot has translated to help you in your career? Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
How so?
I think one of the best pieces of advice I had ever been given in my entire life, I learned in that acting class, and it was that you can't be nice and honest, right? Being nice is the antithesis of being honest, because nice has this sense of you're not giving someone the full information that they need. You can be cordial and honest. You can be respectful and honest, but you can't be nice and honest, because if you look at something and there were many times in that acting class where I get up and I do scene, and we're doing scene study, and then lights go down, the lights come up, and the acting coach would be like, "How did you feel you did?" And I'd be like, "I thought that was great." And he would be like, "Funny, that's the worst thing I've ever seen you do." And just blunt, just as blunt there. And then what you learn in that moment is not to be offended by that, but to go, okay, but why? Right? Help me understand, and like, let me adjust my internal barometer. And what I have taken, and that's a very safe environment to develop that skill of being able to take feedback somewhat objectively, not get upset about it, pass it through your filters and pass it through all of your training, and then say, okay, hold on, I need to take this and figure out how to use it. Right. And so when you get feedback like that from somebody you don't necessarily respect, or you believe doesn't know what they're talking about, or something like that, we have this sense of like, oh, I should be defensive about what I'm doing. But what I've taken away from that, what I learned from spending those 3 years on stage and being, crushed like that many times, is to just stop and ask why. Because maybe I'll disagree, but at the same time, there have been many times where I disagreed with the feedback that I got, but they ended up being very correct, while at the same time for the wrong reasons, right? Where someone goes like, oh, you hear the term like less is more, do less. What they're really trying to say is whatever it is you're doing is not believable. And as a result, you're indicating that I'm guilty, or I'm indicating this. You're indicating to the audience that you're the bad guy. And that's what people see as being too big for the camera, when in reality, the bad guy doesn't think he's the bad guy. He's totally justified in everything he's doing. And so you wouldn't indicate that to anyone, because if you were indicating that, the actor across from you would see it and they would respond to it in character. It would be weird, right? So in that sense, like, I know I just went on a little bit of a diatribe. This sense of like, the biggest skill that I learned from this class was actually how to have honest interactions with people and adjust to what's going on in the conversation. Are they uncomfortable? Am I uncomfortable? And to make use of that.
I think one of the interesting things, the bad guy doesn't think he's bad. I always laugh at these, like, I'm a bad guy. I don't think I'm bad. I'm going to act that way accordingly. The ones which start like screwing with my head is when it's like, I don't know, like the ones where it's like the body swapping or something like that, because it's like, it's an actor pretending to be someone else who has the mindset, who's been brainwashed or something like that. Those ones are always like, I can't even imagine what's going through the actor's head, and probably not trying to laugh, where it's like, I'm acting to be an actor in this. Like, at one point, I'm sure they're just like, I don't even care it's probably those ones where you get the most honest interactions.
The one that throws me for a loop, the one that really impresses me, is when someone has to act badly as part of their character. Like, they're an actor acting a part, and that part is someone acting badly. So you have to make it believable while also making it unbelievable. And like, that's the thing that brings me for a trip. I was like, anyone who does that is like, oh man, that's so hard to think about how you would do it, because there's a lot of physical comedy that comes with that, and there's I just have never done it, and every time I see it, I'm just impressed.
Yeah, it's incredible. All right, the other thing you said, and actually Sim, it looks like Sim said it as well. Text is really small on my screen. It's challenging. Most humans take everything personal and do not like to take criticism. I do think this is like something which which happens very frequently in cybersecurity, information security. I'll say pen testing, because it's a field like I'm in, and finding bugs, because oftentimes my job, there we go, because I push the button right now. But no, my job is finding bugs, finding vulnerabilities, finding exploits. And not always, but often when I find a vulnerability, a bug, SQL injection, cross-site scripting, it's seen as I'm calling the developer's baby ugly. Now, sometimes if you find like an outdated package and you're exploiting third-party code, like that, it's not really their fault. And in some ways, I would even argue normal cross-site scripting and SQL injection isn't really their fault because there's so much to take up on. They're on different sprints. They have to get push out code. They're doing production, blah, blah, all those excuses. But in some ways, I haven't had to necessarily deal with criticism because often I'm the one criticizing their code. And early in my career, it was very much felt like a PvP match. Like, I won. I was victorious. Like, I found the bug in them. But I found the bug in their code. But I feel like later in my career, I've gotten smarter in that communication because I need to get them on my side. I'm part of their team. I'm the one helping them. And especially as a consultant, it's even more so. But I do you hit that often where, like, you're having to balance how you communicate criticism, or often, like, as you said, you can be nice and you can be honest. I'm realizing that's
it's incredibly difficult. Yeah. And it's incredibly difficult. And I think it's one of the hardest things to kind of get over. I'll say that in college, we get, or really in training in general, we get this idea that the real world is built with checks and balances, and you will be graded at every step of the way. Like, you finished work and someone will grade it, and that work will be accepted or not accepted and then pushed into production. In reality, you do work and people trust you to get it right, and you have to make the decision to push it into production, right? Maybe there's some checks and balances, but in a lot of cases, it's you're the professional. We trust you to get it right, and if you say you have it right, then that's the answer, right? So, and it gets a little different if you're in the research realm, obviously peer review and all that stuff. Like, peer review is good and it strengthens, but you always have that issue of, like, okay, I did a thing, I give it to you, and now you put the onus on the other person to look at it and be like, based on my background, this is correct, right? Like, it's not like that problem goes away. You're just passing the buck along, right? So, where it breaks down is, in reality, those checks and balances are just like a social contract, right? So what I've found to be very effective is, instead of looking at a piece of code or a product or whatever as someone's work, I simply look at it as that application or this code, and I start to ask questions, right? Like, and you can maybe call them leading questions, like, why is this interface designed this way? Was there a reason for it? There might be a reason for it, right? And it was like, well, did you consider this? Right? Did you consider that? Instead of saying this is bad and wrong and you should feel bad, it's a matter of asking questions. And so I like to say, if you inquire as to why something is the way it is, you'll often find that there are many and good reasons why something is the way it is. Mm-hmm. And oftentimes it's, well, that interface was developed 10 years ago, and now, an entire company is dependent on it being that way. Otherwise, their entire business breaks. So it's like, oh, okay, nightmare scenario, right? And now we can't fix it the way I would like to fix it, which would be to tear something down and rebuild it, which is not always a sustainable solution. It's incredibly expensive. So I know I'm getting like a little off track, but
no, this is actually really on track, because like this is something I've experienced recently too. Is like, I'm looking at a piece of code which I'm trying to move over from like servered to serverless, and as I'm doing this, I'm noticing there's a lot of issues with it. There's a lot of SQL injection and things like that. But I also know it's not off. Like, I have the benefit of knowing the history of how that thing came about and how that company was a startup written by one person, things like that. And now they're trying to mature their processes. And often along the time, you lose that story. Like, the engineers don't know that story because there's been turnover and things like that. Something you mentioned, though, is like asking questions. And I think this is the tactic I've started shifting to without realizing it. There's a great book called Never Split the Difference. While it's talking about negotiating, I like it for just general interactions. And he talks about the questions to ask, where why questions can sound accusatory, not often. Yep. So he said shift to like what and how questions, like how does this work? What was the reasoning behind this decision versus why did you do it that way, which can sound accusatory.
Yeah, and obviously I'm not a perfect communicator in any sense, and so I'm not going to sit here and say that like this is the way you should communicate problems with code to other people. I'm saying no, I'm still very much learning in that sense, and I think the goal is I like to talk about this problem in particular in terms of acting. When you go to audition for a part, you go into usually the office of a casting director and you put an audition on film for that casting director, and that casting director hands your tape to the director, who then makes the decision as to who gets cast. I want to say probably somewhere between 8 and 9 times out of 10. Maybe I'm wrong and I'll get called out by my acting coach later for this. Like 8 and 9 times out of 10, that casting director has no formal training in acting, and they've never spent a single day on set. So when they give you feedback, and they try and direct you in the moment sometimes. You come in, you give your audition, and then they go, okay, hold on, reset and do it like this. You have to have that moment. You have to recognize that this person is a gatekeeper. They can throw your tape in the trash and not hand it to the director if you piss them off. And at the same time, take a second and think about why they're giving you that feedback. There might be a legitimate reason, but you also can't ask them why without potentially offending them. So it's it's a very bad power dynamic situation for the actor putting their stuff on tape. And you can learn a lot about the way people communicate and how to mitigate that situation by putting yourself in it over and over and over again, and realizing, I can give my audition without compromising that relationship and be cordial. And maybe it sounds a little manipulative in some sense, but at the same time, like, I learned doing that enough times that there's no difference between that situation and talking to somebody about the way a piece of code is designed or the work that they've done. It's, still an outside person, and you don't know my background. So if I'm giving you feedback, you may have the opinion that, like, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about. He doesn't know any of this. He was blah, 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 blah. And how do you break past that and recognize that you're all on the same team? And at the end of the day, we're all trying to make a movie. Yeah, I'm trying to get paid, or, whatever. We're all trying to make the application. We're all trying to get paid, and we want to make the application, but we want to make it as good as possible for the audience or for the customer. And the way I always like to put it is, whatever work I'm doing, I want to be proud of that work. I want to be able to be proud of that work. So if I'm the right person for the right job, I'm down to do it. But if I'm the wrong person for that job, I'm not going to try and sell myself more, because I'm going to make myself miserable at the same time. Mm-hmm. But yeah,
this kind
a little bit of a tangent.
No, it's not. It's not, because I think the other perspective here, and there's no way this communicates right, but I'm going to try anyway, which is, I think you, as an individual, there's two ways of looking at it. One, I'll throw it out this way. You need to be remarkably selfish. And I'm going to say this, and maybe that's the weird way of saying it. You need to be remarkably selfish and remarkably focus on yourself. And let's use like a PvP example, because I haven't been playing games, but one of the best communities is League of Legends. No, I'm just kidding. It's one of the games I like playing, and once in a while you play with other people, and they're like remarkably toxic, and they're like, our team is horrible, and they all terrible, and let's just quit and forfeit at like 15 or whatever it is. And something that always goes through my mind with that is, like, I can in no way control what my other teammates do. It doesn't matter what game it is. In no way can I control. I can maybe give feedback or things like that, but I can't control them to improve themselves. I can try and things like that, but ultimately I have no control over their gameplay. I can't improve their gameplay. The only person in the entire team I can control the gameplay and improve is myself. So when I get feedback, again, that feedback, some of it's going to be crap, some of it's going to be great. I'm going to sift through it and I'm going to decide what's better. But all of this is under the guise of being selfish. I want to improve my gameplay. Selfish might be like not caring about other individuals, because you're saying it as, I want to make the best movie. I want to play the best game I can. I want to be the best hacker I can. I want to have the best experience. I want to have the most knowledge. And the way I do that is I can only improve myself. Again, I'm going to give information when I can, but I don't know. That was like kind of like one of those things I had thinking through games is like, I only can control myself, my own emotions, my own take on this, my own knowledge, and sift through opinions. I in no way can impact other people unless they're accepting to it. It's probably a better weird way of ending it. But my point is I only have to care about myself because that's really all I can actually control.
So let me flip the question around on you, because I think you're like, a lot of people will look at my background and be like, well, this is why this person is an excellent communicator. How did you become a good communicator? Because you are. Like, what like, do you have an acting background? Did you get forced up in front of lots of executives to do song and dances? Like, what was your path? Because I'll put this. There are a lot of people that have said to me over the years, not everyone can do what you do. And my response is, not everyone has been invested in the way that I have. Everyone can do what I do. They just need to be invested in to have them do it. And it is a very specific skill set, and not everyone needs to. So they don't get invested in. Where did your investment come from in developing your skill?
So as I think back, I would have to say it started as a kid. It wasn't later in college, because I've always been, I would say, in front of a crowd and stuff like that. I think that's a learned skill, and you have to learn through just trial and error. But like interactions, one-on-one, being able to talk to people and things like that was when I was a kid. I still do. Like I still, okay, here we go. Here we go. Like, here we go. Oh gosh, where's the camera? Like if I'm like, oh, that's not, I mean, I'm not even in range, but like I got into magic. I got into close-up magic tricks. I loved doing it because it was a great icebreaker, especially with other people my age, meeting people, doing close-up magic. And you always had a coin. I always loved coin magic because everyone had a coin on them. Probably less so nowadays than now, but everyone had coins on them. So I learned close-up magic. I got better at it. It was a skill I loved honing. And it was always, that was my way of communicating with people. And then as time went on, you can show tricks all day. At the end of the day, you make a coin disappear in this hand, it's in the other hand. It is like, it's just this. Magic doesn't exist. I'm sorry, my daughter. I'm sorry, but magic doesn't exist. So like, what made magic better, what made the trick more interesting and funnier, was interacting with them, dropping the coin, sliding it under your foot, moving it from one hand to another, making jokes, making yourself the butt of the joke. And as I think that's, as I learned how to do magic, I learned the value of communication one-on-one. And I think that's where the skill started. And then it honed to more and more. You had so much to learn from everyone. It doesn't matter what their background is. I don't need to be technical. Like for me, I laugh with my business partner who was like a professional hockey player. And I'm like, we went up to a camp. Melissa, my wife, she bought shirts for us. Everyone was supposed to be wearing their favorite jerseys. Our jerseys just said sports across them. And our chant was like, do the thing, score the basket, leap the goal, like whatever it was. Because but I love talking to my business partner about the season he was on a professional hockey. So I think, how did I get the talking skill? I think talking to people, sharing and hearing their passions. I mean, heck, that's why I started this stream, because I wanted to hear what people do and their passions. And I think it came with time. It came with hobbies. It came with understanding. Everyone has passions. You have to hit them and talk to them. And I think it just hones over time. You build it up. I think the other piece of this is when I started doing YouTube, I realized more and more that skill doesn't necessarily translate. And when you look at my earlier videos, you notice, like, once in a while, even on stream, I do this. You hit a point where you're no longer talking to a camera. Like this whole conversation I love, but this part individually, I'm not talking to a camera. I'm talking to you as if you're in the room. And that's where, like, I know I'm communicating right. Like I'm feeling great about it. And even in videos, same thing. Like there's a time where I'm talking to a camera and then I'm talking to like what I think my audience is. And that's the part where it's like, I want to get more of that. That was meandering, but I want to get more of that.
No, I remember early on watching. Yeah, I've been his sounding board for a little while, and like, here, what do you think of this video? What do you think of this video? And there were many times where I would be, look, I would like replay this like little 10-second clip, and I go, "This is your most awkward moment in this 10-second clip. Stop doing this thing and just, talk to the, imagine there's." I think I actually told you, like, if you can tape a face behind your camera to look at while you are talking, so you're not looking directly into the camera, because that can be really awkward sometimes, especially if you're spiking the camera dead on. People may not necessarily like that. It's a little awkward, right? Like, now I'm looking at you.
See, the funny part is I've probably been doing that this entire stream because I use like a teleprompter in front of my screen. So like you're right at my camera. So I don't know. Is it
right? But
in chat? Tell me if this is
different.
remarkably awkward.
Wait, this is a little different, right? Like, I'm going to look right over the camera, and I'm going to get a little closer, and then I'm going to spike the camera, and then tell me it's not a little jarring. I'm over the camera, and now I'm spiking.
I'm actually into it.
Right?
I'm totally
like, some
into
people
it.
are into it, right? Yeah, but some people are into it. But it can be very jarring if in the middle of, this is something you learn in professional acting classes. If you're in the middle of a scene where you're supposed to be talking to somebody who's behind the camera and you accidentally spike the camera, you go from looking at a person to looking at the audience. And depending on what you want, right? If you want to be talking to the audience, if I want to be talking to you guys at home, I can do that. I just have to spike the camera, and it's not awkward. It just looks like I'm talking to you. But then if I look down here, it probably looks like I'm talking to Silk, because I am. I'm looking at him on the screen, right? So if you give yourself a pair of eyes to talk to, it makes you more natural. It's just little bits and pieces that I've picked up in my career. But yeah, no, I think go ahead.
Oh no, I was gonna say, it's like I was laughing. Brand brought up a great one. I had to throw that up. It was Deadpool. Yeah, you're breaking the fourth wall the moment you spike a camera. I think like going through it. You asked me a question: is where did I hone the skill? And I don't. In some ways, that interaction one-on-one was a developed one from a long time ago. I learned that's what I like doing. Where I think interacting with people is something change. It changes when you're talking to an individual and you're sharing their passions and things like that, to all of a sudden you're in front of a camera teaching, or you're in front of a camera. And what I've realized is they're the same thing. We just as human beings become remarkably awkward the moment there's a camera on us. The moment like we feel like the lights on us, and that's what I've been noticing is they're the same thing. For me, they're the same thing. I just need to get to the point where the camera feels as natural as the non-camera.
In my acting class, they would have said it's this: you build up filters over the years. You do something embarrassing, you get embarrassed, and then you try to create a filter that prevents you from ever putting yourself in that situation again. Well, when a camera starts, your filters come up, and you're like, well, I can't look stupid. Right. But part of being an actor is sometimes to look incredibly stupid on camera, and to do it naturally, and to make it a believable situation. And so that's really hard to square. It's something I never got past in my early 20s. And I was so unnatural in many senses. It wasn't until years, like I want to say in the past couple of years, and especially doing this stream, of just being able to be like, yeah, whatever happens, it's fine. I know what we're doing today ish, whatever. And I can just riff along with you. But it is also exhausting to riff for a really long time. Right. So
like the one which cracks me up though, is like, sorry, I keep going and then I'll jump in.
Oh, so Brandon's like, there's a difference between talking to an audience and then talking to a person, but it's less about you and more about them. I don't necessarily know that I agree with that. Something I was going to say earlier, I was like, one of the key things when you internalize it that make communication significantly easier is the realization that you have more in common with everyone else than you have differences with everyone else, right? Like, Silk and I have dramatically different backgrounds. We have dramatically different jobs. Maybe we both work within cybersecurity, but even if I'm talking to a professional athlete, I'm not in any senses a professional athlete, but I still have more in common with a professional athlete than I do differences. Example, we both poop. Right? Like,
Everybody.
so like if you recognize that, like, and you start to see just how many similarities we have with each other as human beings, maybe we have vastly different backgrounds, vastly different everyday lives and interactions with everyday life. You still have core things that you share with every single other human being. And when you see that, it makes it so much easier to naturally talk with whoever's in the room, whether it's a crowd of people or one-on-one.
One of the things when you were talking, which was I was thinking about, and this is where I was jumping in before, was that getting over embarrassment. And the quote like, I always laugh at is you can't be blackmailed if you're proud of it. And there's this great, I think the point I understood that fully, and I'm hoping this one was lost to the internet. Maybe someone can find this image for me. Was at DEF CON, obviously I'm a goon, I do photography. Gourry, heck, he is, everyone probably doesn't realize this. Every single video I shoot at DEF CON, like Gourry was behind the camera, unless it was like one I was holding. So the thing which at DEF CON, I took pictures and I did photos, and there was this photo of Gourry, which is just magical, and it's hopefully lost to the internet. But it went in front of the entire stream. And let me tell you, it was a quite revealing picture. And it went to everyone at DEF CON. And it was like one of those video pictures of, if I can't see myself ever doing something like that or putting that out there for the entire internet to see. So again, if anyone can find that, please post it in Discord because it would make me happy. But it wasn't this journey. That's like the most I've gotten out of streaming and video. Sorry, I still have that cough. It's going to just stay on forever. Is that ability to embrace embarrassment and be okay with it has been one of my, I would say, the greatest thing I've done in the past couple of years. And it's been like a personality thing, which has paid off and just a ton. And I use the example of like this week, my daughter's in kindergarten. There was a secret reader. So throughout the year, parents come in and surprise the kids and do a book. And I talked to the teacher a little bit, and she's like, well, some of the adults are really awkward. And Melissa did it. And she was kind of telling me like, most people read too fast or most people do this. And I don't think previous to stream, I would have done this. But for this, I read a book called Escargot. And I'm sitting down in front of kids. And I think historically, I would have sat down and read the book. This one, bonjour, I am a beautiful French snail. Oh, would it be the baboon? The lemur, the baboon. And I just embraced the thing. And I will say it was the most like freeing, awesome experience. Because all the kids obviously got into it. But like, it was something I wish I would have learned earlier in life, was this idea of no one cares. Like, you go through life thinking the spotlight is on you, that you make any mistake, everyone's going to notice. But like, you realize like everyone has that spotlight on them. Everyone is the main character in their own TV show. And I wish I would have learned it earlier, because it has paid off tolls just in personal and professional life, just giving up that like feeling of embarrassment. Like I need to present. It's got me on social media. It led to DEF CON. Like it was just like, if anyone could learn that, like if anyone could like strive, like, I think it would just the biggest thing, again, be selfish and like pour into yourself in that thing. Like, does that make sense?
Yeah, what you've just described is, you broke one of your filters, and you broke your filter of not wanting to seem silly, and just embracing being silly in front of a group of people, and seeing that, like the clown in a circus is the hardest job in the world, because their job is to be silly and be funny, and that's really hard. You can do flips on a trapeze all day, and that's hard. But at a certain point, it becomes scripted. Being a clown is really hard because it's a dynamic job, right? And so it's probably the hardest job in all of the circus. Anyway, what I was going to say is you broke that silliness filter. And it's one of the reasons why I like wearing a kilt when I do big presentations. I just went to this big conference, lots of executives, lots of military people, and I got up on stage and I'm wearing a kilt. As I'm walking up to the stage, I can hear the giggles in the background. Ha, ha, ha. And then I get up and I give a serious talk about, insecurity in systems and why we need to do this testing. I even said during the talk, I was like, look, I'm not here to kick people's puppies, but this is a real problem, and if we don't solve these things, people can die, right? So, and then I get off stage wearing the kilt, right? And it's like you have that moment, and I got asked the question, like, why do you wear them? I'm just like, look, my talk isn't for everyone, right? Not everyone is concerned with the problems that I'm up there doing, but it's a big group of people, so there's something in my talk for everyone, right? So at the end of the day, people will still be saying, do you remember that guy in the kilt that talked about this thing, right? It's a little bit of marketing. And no, I'm not worried about looking silly, and I'm not worried about people not respecting me, because I have learned over my career, if you talk about serious things in a serious manner, it doesn't matter realistically how you look. In fact, you can take advantage of the fact that, I like to say, people have this perception that engineers are weird creatures that live in the basement in the corner and they smell bad and all those things. And when you break that perception and you screw with it and you say, and you embrace it, where you just go, yes, I'm weird. Now let me discuss my issues with you. Let me discuss the serious issues that we're facing. People actually look at you and they go, oh yeah, this one's weird. That means he must be good at his job, right? Like, and you can take advantage of that, and so you can screw with people's perception, and it's really fantastic.
You know what? There's more to be said here. I think we're probably hitting that point of, anyone have any questions in chat, which we absolutely need to answer, or directions that we haven't talked about. But like, I know for me, like, breaking that filter has paid toll. Like, it makes a whole video, like all the streams, worth it to me. And that's why I like doing them, is because it's pushing me more and more like past it. I'm like freaking pumped to actually do more videos and getting more people on here. It's just a beautiful thing. With that, what do you have for us? What's your closing remark?
Oh man, put me on the spotlight first.
I am putting you on the spot.
That's fine. Yeah, I mean, can't be blackmailed if you're proud of it is always my go-to. It's just like, yeah, whatever, you got a picture of me, cool, fine. Like, oh no, my life is not ending.
Yeah, man, it's like it was one of those things. Like, right when I recognized that, and you had said that, I've churned it over in my mind, and as I've broken that filter and other ones, I feel like it's improved me both professionally and personally. Especially like taking the ability to understand that I can take feedback from everyone, but I don't necessarily have to accept that feedback. And I know it's such like a childhood thing. Like, everyone should learn this, but somehow along the lines we move from like the kid who has no problem taking apart the N64, like with no fear of breaking it, no fear of embarrassment, to now, like, all of a sudden we have to act professional. We have to act without filters. I didn't even think, like, back to my early career, I wanted to move up quicker. So like, you want to make yourself older, more professional, more presentable at the company, because that's what's going to move you up. And I think focusing more on, like what you said, is be yourself. Like, holy crap, did we just spend an hour talking about being yourself and being okay with it?
Yeah, pretty much.
How in the world can I be in like my 30s and still be like, and yes, I'm still in my 30s. It's a beautiful thing. I don't care how old oh gosh. With that, thanks for watching. My gosh, we spent an hour talking. I love it. I would love to hear from your feedback, by the way. If you like these kind of like intimate, like random discussions where we see them and then we just kind of like get to talk and meander. Overall, thanks for joining us on a Saturday morning. Really appreciate it. Thanks for watching, and hack on.